I think the best way to show you what quackery medicine is to show you an example rather than just define it. Now, I really wish I had thought of this term. It's not my term. Dr. Robert Donald coined it, as far as I can tell, back in 2008. And let's take a look at a very recent example. Okay. All right. There we go. Does anyone know who this is? And I know a couple of you do, so don't know because you're involved, you actually work there. Does this help? UCI stands for UC Irvine. Okay. Does this help? Susan and Henry Samueli, and it was announced last month that they were giving $200 billion to UC Irvine to found basically the College of Health Sciences, the Susan and Henry Samueli College of Health Sciences. It was it made the news, it made national news. And here's the idea. This is supposed to be the first of its kind College of Health Sciences focused on interdisciplinary integrative health. What that means I'll get into in a minute. But it's supposed to reinvent medicine, integrating programs across the School of Medicine, School of Nursing, Pharmacy, Population Health, etc. And the previously existing Susan Samueli Center for Integrative Medicine will become the Susan Samueli Integrative Health Institute. Again, I'll get into what this means a little more in a minute. Come on. There we go. But who are they? Who are Susan and Henry Samueli? Well, Henry Samueli is a billionaire, now a billionaire. He co-founded Broadcom. Susan was a software programmer at IBM, who in the 90s, after a trip to France, where she got a cold, decided to try a homeopathic remedy, a homeopathic aconite, and got better. And she decided that homeopathy works, and is now a homeopath herself. And she's converted her husband, basically. And in fact, there's her husband. And this was a quote from one of the news stories on this gift. And I'll just leave that there for a second. Okay, so he believes in it too. And they they treat their children's self-limited illnesses with homeopathic remedies. And their kids get better because they're self-limited illnesses. Before I go on, everybody knows homeopathy is quackery and why. That's like one of the advantages of talking to a skeptic conference. I don't have to explain homeopathy with 4 or 5 slides. So this made the news, and there was actually some good criticism in the media, shockingly enough. Michael Hiltzik has done a series of really good articles looking at this. I love this one. The question, if you can't read it in the back row, is, does $200 million quack? The answer is, of course, yes, and very loudly. But the funny thing is, okay, Hiltzik noticed that after the round of criticism after this news story came out, that UC Irvine was starting to scrub references to homeopathy from its website. And yes, there were some. But the internet is forever. The internet never forgets. But UCI was incomplete, because I checked last night, and this is still on the website. A naturopath, Dana Kawada. This little quote for those who can't read in the back row. Her interest in homeopathy quickly followed, and it became her preferred mode of treatment. Oddly enough, homeopathy is not on the list of treatments on the website that they offer, but a lot of other nonsense is, including our Ayurvedic therapies, functional medicine, which I'll have more to say about a little bit later, osteopathic manipulation, vitamin infusion therapy. They don't mention naturopathy either. Now, I'm not going to talk much about naturopathy other than to say you can't have naturopathy without homeopathy because it's part and parcel of what naturopathy is, and in fact, they all learn it. Because a true expert will be talking right after me. So that saves me time, given that I had to cut my usual talk almost in half, and she can tell you more about naturopathy than I ever could. Now, the Samuelis had been huge donors for years. They gave something like $70 million to UC Irvine over 20 years. And someone found in a prior gift agreement from September 2003, they wanted, this proposed center will build on the considerable knowledge and will, study the efficacy of various modalities, including herbs and homeopathic medicine. And then here, 4 years before Steve invited me to join science-based medicine as a blogger, they said they were going to be giving science-based information. I mean, what else can you say? So what will that $200 million buy? Interesting. Well, first, $50 million, construction of a facility to house the college, which UCI actually will match, so it'll be a $100 million building. $5 million for state-of-the-art technology and labs. Now this struck me. That's not a lot of money for laboratories. Anybody out there do medical research? Right? That's like one lab, right? And depending on what you do, it might not even be that. The rest goes for endowed chairs across the medicine, nursing, pharmacy, and population health disciplines, integrative health training and mentoring for medical students, scholarships, innovative curricular development, and clinical services. And that's a lot of money. So here's the definition of quacademic medicine after I've shown you an example. It's the infiltration of pseudoscience and quackery into medical academia in research, education, and patient care. And it's been going on for close to 30 years now. And that was just the latest and perhaps the most spectacular example I've seen since I've started paying attention to this. Now, excuse me, if I break out into a coughing jag, I'll take off my microphone. So what is integrative medicine? And you can't have, integrative medicine is part and parcel of what I call quacademic medicine. It just is, and I'll explain why. But first, let's hear it from the horse's mouth. This is from Andrew Weil's center. And they say integrative medicine is a healing-oriented medicine that takes account of the whole person. And it emphasizes the therapeutic relationship between practitioner and patient. This sort of thing irritates the crap out of me because the arrogance is astounding. It's like these people think they're the first people to ever have thought that healing is important, taking care of the whole person is important, and that the therapeutic relation between the practitioner and patient is important. But that's just my pet peeve. So here are some claims that you'll frequently hear from integrative medicine. First of all, we treat the root cause of disease, not just the symptoms. And we have this neat little thing here, heart disease, arthritis, fibromyalgia, and but here's the problem. The causes they treat, a lot of them, are pseudoscience. Like toxic chemical exposure, detoxification imbalances, immune imbalances, digestive, absorptive, and microbiological imbalances, structural imbalances. They're big on imbalances. Kind of like the four humors, right? Holistic. We treat the whole patient, not just the disease label placed on the patient. All right. Patient-centered. We take into account the patient's values and wishes. Okay. Prevention. We're the only ones who really try to prevent disease. Never mind all that stuff that primary care docs do in pediatrics and adult, medicine each and every day. Natural, of course, because natural is always better, right? This one drives me nuts. The best of both worlds. We use the best of alternative and conventional medicine. I always ask, how can you use the best of quackery? How did we get here? What the heck is integrative medicine? I mean, it used to go under a lot of other names. And I like to, whoop. I did not hit that button twice, so I'm going to go back. And I shudder to use this slide given potential audience, but what the heck. But I prefer this one. So let's go. Pre-1960s, it was basically like folk medicine or various, in sorts of medicines that have been passed on through the eons. Here, alternative medicine. Then it became complementary and alternative medicine because alternative medicine implied you use it instead of medicine that, and people had a hard time dealing with that. It was hard to accept it in the mainstream. So they say, okay, we'll use it with medicine. Which begs the question, why do you need it if, but be that as it may, that wasn't good enough because here it's just complementary. It's the icing on the cake. It's probably, technically speaking, not necessary. So the next, about 15, 20 years ago, it became integrative medicine. We are integrating alternative care with conventional care and giving you the best of both worlds. They're co-equals too. You notice the implication there? They're like, instead of like alternative medicine just being complementary, it's now integrative. They're equal. And I suck at Photoshop, but this is the epitome of integrative medicine is Dr. Weil. I'm going to try to convince you that integrative medicine equals mixing science with my generation. What can I say? I suspect it's a generation of a lot of you out there too. But if you're a little younger, or maybe younger still, or bringing it full circle, I used to use Dr. Strange from the comics as the first one because I love Dr. Strange and I read Dr. Strange in the 70s. But they made the movie last year and it kind of screwed up my slide. Anyway, it's not just UC Irvine. This is Harvard. Take a gander of that title. It's CME credits for acupuncture. Hundreds of CME credits, a course that's online and both, you have to fly out there for workshops over the course of a whole academic year. It's going on right now. Georgetown's interesting. Back in 2003, Georgetown got a grant from the National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine to integrate CAM into its curriculum. And one of the marked examples of that was, or one of the most bizarre examples of that was, it had acupuncturists come to gross anatomy lab to show where meridians were and give lectures. Here's another one. I'm not going to spend much time on this. Just look at the list. This is George Washington University. I could have chosen any of a number of others. So, I hate to have to keep hating on the Cleveland Clinic because I did my residency at University Hospitals of Cleveland, and yes, granted, they were kind of rivals and down the road. It's still Cleveland, and I still like Cleveland. But this is an actual pamphlet on Reiki, and you can't read it, so I typed it in bigger fonts for you. Reiki is a form of hands-on natural healing using the universal life force energy. This gentle energy is limitless in abundance. Physicists out there? And believed to be a spiritual form of energy. Here, I love this part. The Reiki practitioner is the conduit between you and the source of this energy. The energy flows through her energy field and through her hands to you. It doesn't come from the practitioner, it comes through the practitioner, from the universal source, so there's no energy drain on the person giving the treatment. Imagine my relief. Any Babylon 5 fans out there? Remember that episode from season 1? Yes? Okay, that's my geek moment. I will now explain to you what Reiki is in a way that you will never, ever forget. Now, for some reason, Reiki sites love to use images like this. But, so they say, okay, the energy comes through the practitioner from this purple blob of energy that I will call the universal source. I just like the purple blob of energy. Does this remind you of anything? No? It's faith healing. It is faith healing that substitutes Eastern mystical religious beliefs for Christianity. So, hating on Cleveland Clinic some more. Functional medicine is really big in integrative medicine. And functional medicine is a little different, like whereas integrative medicine will add the naturopathy, the acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine, all those various quackeries. Functional medicine, for reasons that I still don't understand, basically seems to take the worst aspects of conventional medicine and ramp them up to, you put them on steroids, ramp them up by, orders of magnitude. They like to have this lovely little model that's basically meaningless. You have, we take care of all these clinical imbalances between the mental, emotional, spiritual, structural integrity, assimilation, inflammation, energy, toxicity. They're very big on detoxification. Quick case report, because I'm a breast cancer surgeon, I couldn't resist this one. This was actually published a few months ago. So, 80-year-old woman with a tender right breast. Typical comorbidities. She has a 15-centimeter mass and a lymph node palpable under the arm. They did all the imaging. It's breast cancer. You don't need to worry about the markers. So it's inflammatory breast cancer, which is a fortunately uncommon form of breast cancer that's particularly nasty. And this is what it looks like. This is a typical case. This tumor gets in the lymphatics under the skin, and that's what gives the red appearance of the breast. So what they did, over on this side, and you don't need to be able to read it, it's on the one side they have the conventional care, and the standard of care for inflammatory breast cancer is chemotherapy, surgery, radiation. So this is just the mapping of the chemotherapy doses, the surgery, etc. On the integrative care, though, they added all of this. For instance, this is her conventional medications. Then they put her on a gluten-free, dairy-free diet, which for an 80-year-old receiving chemotherapy, putting an 80-year-old on chemotherapy on a restrictive diet is a bad idea, generally. They gave her melatonin, let's go back. Sorry about that. Probiotics, medical food shake, vitamin D. I will show you the only stuff that they did that may have benefited this woman. A little bit of bicycling, mild exercise, sleep instructions, help her with her sleep, maybe some group support, and a part-time caregiver. See, that's the thing. Integrate science-based recommendations with all the quackery to make the quackery look like it's science-based. Now, here's what I mean by the worst, and again, you don't have to be able to read this. It's just to make a point. These are all the labs they drew on her. About any docs out there? There's parasitology, there's metabolic markers, there's amino acid levels, fatty acid levels, toxic elements. They measure lead, mercury, antimony, and they supposedly base treatments on this. I don't know what this all means. I suspect any of you physicians out there probably don't know what it means. I would put to you that functional medicine doctors don't know what all this means. They just make the shit up as they go along. So that's what I said. Functional medicine is the worst of both worlds. Massive conventional over-testing and over-treatment plus quackery. Now, it also leads into bad places. This here is Mark Hyman, who founded the Functional Medicine Institute at Cleveland Clinic. This is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I'm sure many of you, or if not most of you, know who he is and how anti-vaccine he is. And here they are on the Dr. Oz show, talking about the book they wrote together about, how evil thimerosal is, even though it hasn't been in vaccines since around 2002. But in any case, as we all know, in this particular branch of the anti-vaccine movement, thimerosal is the root of all evil that causes all autism. But in any case, a lot of these sorts of functional medicine treatments, if you look at autism quackery, they're very similar. I know. This book came out right around the time that Mark Hyman was hired in September 2004. There's no way the Cleveland Clinic didn't know about this. So what's driving this? Well, there's a number of forces. One, the Samuelis, they have their own before they gave this money, they had their own foundation that they donated to more than just UC Irvine, but that they closed, and when they closed, I thought, oh, maybe they failed. No, they just closed in preparation to give all that money to UC Irvine. But there's also the Academic Consortium for Integrative Medicine and Health. 70 academic medical centers in North America belong to it, up from 8 in 1999. 26 of 41 NCI designated comprehensive cancer centers, of which I'm privileged to work for one, are affiliated with the medical schools belonging to ACIMH. Fortunately, my medical school and my cancer center are not. There are professional societies now that have sprung up. Hey, look, Integrative Oncology. They're even having their meeting in 2 weeks. And they allow, of course, cancer docs, family practitioners, patient advocates, basic scientists, all well and good, mind-body therapists, naturopaths, traditional Chinese medicine practitioners. I once got in a disagreement. I wrote a critical article about integrative oncology 3 years ago. SIO wrote a response. They were not happy. And I happened to talk about homeopathy in the article, and they're going, well, we know homeopathy is quackery. Why did you write about homeopathy? I said, okay. Why do you let naturopaths in? Every naturopath is trained in homeopathy. Most of them use it. And in fact, in some clinical guidelines the SIO submitted, 2 naturopaths were the authors. And in fact, in the last 5 years, 2 of the presidents of the Society of Integrative Oncology have been naturopaths. Drop the mic? No. There's also this. Used to be NCAM. It's the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health. Championed by Senator Tom Harkin. It started out as a small little office in the NIH, $2 million budget. It's now got about a $100 million budget, which I admit is down from its peak of around 128 a few years ago, but I think that's more due to federal budget issues than it is to any actual pulling back. And it was renamed 2 years ago to the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health. Here's a quickie. Okay, remember homeopathy? There are NCAM grants on homeopathy. This is one. I like this quote. It fills a major need that could contribute to well-known problems and replicability. Basically what it did, and you don't need to read that. I just put it there for any geeks who like to read specific aims. They were testing how much you should shake each step when you're to potentize. So like, when you're diluting it, 100-fold, 100-fold, 100-fold until you've diluted it away to, 10 to the 60th, at each step you shake. Now you could laugh at this, right? But it goes into bad places. For instance, does anyone know what the Gonzalez Protocol is? This was big about 20 years ago to 15 years ago. It's basically pancreatic enzymes, glandular products, lots of supplements, coffee enemas. And they actually did a clinical trial on this based on a best case, i.e. cherry-picked case, series published by Nicholas Gonzalez. And surprise, surprise, even as horrible as pancreatic cancer is, the standard chemotherapy group still did way better. And they did way better than historical controls. And I could do a whole talk on this because there are so many issues, but we need to move on because I only have like 5 minutes. So let's go back to UC Irvine. This is Dr. Fedorov, who is in charge there. He was also in charge at Georgetown during a lot of the infiltration there. One of Dr. Hiltzik articles, and I was honored to be quoted there, as was Steve Novella was quoted in the article. Basically, I said, the only reason integrative medicine exists is to integrate quackery into medicine. This rubbed people the wrong way. So Dr. Fedorov responded, but he says Gorski and Novella are too skeptical. As physician scientists, we need to keep the broadest open mind, to new ways. There's a typo in my slide. Anyway, to new ways to deliver care or monitor care and diagnose diseases. Yes, but not so much so that your brains fall out. Here we go again, Dr. Katz. Steve knows Dr. Katz because he's at Yale. This was several years ago. This quote you may have heard, I think we need to move beyond the results of randomized controlled trials in order to address patient needs. And to do that, I've arrived at the use of a more fluid concept of evidence than many of us have imbibed from our medical education. And the anecdotal evidence that homeopathy might be effective was brought to us by naturopaths again. We tried it, it worked. It gets worse. I got to hate on Cleveland Clinic again. Some of you may remember in January, there was the director of the wellness clinic there published this article in a local Cleveland, blog publication. And a couple things he said. And those all caps are not mine; they're his. They're like I quoted directly. But he basically said. He basically bought into the idea that vaccines might cause autism. For instance, he makes the false dichotomy here that Jenny McCarthy would have been proud of, that, yeah, it's great that we've stopped the incidence of communicable disease, but not at the cost of ADHD and autism, which is nonsense because vaccines, as we know, do not cause autism. This was a big thing. The CEO of the Cleveland Clinic had to come in and say, no, Cleveland Clinic supports vaccines. But then he doubled down on all the wellness stuff. He says, no, he goes, yes, we support vaccines, but he didn't see the connection, between the pseudoscience in one from the other. Now, it's not all bad news, and I'll leave you with two quick examples that will take a moment. The press is noticing more. For instance, these are a couple of headlines from the last year. And Jan Bellamy, just yesterday on Science-Based Medicine, thank you, Jan, I wish you were here that I could thank you, talked about how the American Association of Family Practitioners actually published a statement saying functional medicine lacks supporting evidence and includes harmful and dangerous treatments, which is true, it does. So we have a lot of work to do. I'm with this, Science-Based Medicine and the Society for Science-Based Medicine with Steve, Harriet, Jan, and all the rest. This is us when we actually visited NCAM. Josephine Briggs is about to retire. She was the director. I worry about who replaces her. But keep working, keep pushing. This is, you know, we can make, despite the Samuelis, which seems like a big deal, and it is, that just tells me we have to work harder. Thank you.